Hello and welcome to the second part of the Power Platform Security series. And today I would like to focus on SharePoint documents, their security and access related to Copilot Studio. And for that I prepared in total 4 different use cases. So the first one is basically a SharePoint site where I uploaded a document without any sensitivity label and only one user, Yoda, has access. Second use case is similar, but more people have access. Yeah? The third case is I have a SharePoint site where everyone has access. Yeah? But this time I upload a document to SharePoint and then I use a sensitivity label. And I want to show you what's going on there. And finally, I'm using Copilot Studio agent, uploaded some documents directly, and these documents are identified or have a sensitivity label attached. And what these kind of setups mean and basically result in, that's something I want to show you next in my brief demo. So let's check it out. Okay, so what you see here are 3 different browsers. The first one is the one with the user Yoda. Then a second one is also from the bright side, that's Obi-Wan. And finally I have here one from the dark side, Darth Vader. And what I want to show you now are the different use cases. So let's get started with the first one. I have here a first Copilot. Yeah? And what I did here is I disabled everything. So I disabled this allow to use the AI for its own knowledge and so on. And the knowledge source for this one is only this SharePoint site. On this SharePoint site, there's only a document. I say case 1. It has some information about the history of Microsoft. And the important thing is here, there's only one member, and this member is Yoda himself. Yeah? So now let's see what happens if we just test this and ask some questions against this knowledge source. Yeah? So let's try. Tell me something about the history of Microsoft. Keep it very short. And let's see. With Yoda, well, we would expect to get an answer. So let's check it out. In the knowledge source here, in the activity map, you see, okay, there is a knowledge source, there's an output, and in a couple of seconds we see here the result. Now let's do the same with Obi-Wan, and remember, Obi-Wan does not have access to the SharePoint site. So let's ask same question, copy and paste. And now we should hopefully see that he does not have any access rights, and you see that. So he's blocked from that, and the same should apply if we go again to the same Copilot with Darth Vader. He should also not have access to that and should not get the feedback. So let's verify that. Okay, we see here no output and we see that here. This was the first case. Now let's have a look at the second case. Second case is different because now I have 2 members. This time I have this Yoda and Obi-Wan, and they have access to a file that tells something about the history of BMW. So let's quickly check that again. I started it already here. Tell me something about the history of BMW. We get an answer, and you see it's a long answer. So let's do the same with Obi-Wan. He has also access to this one. Let's test it, but let's modify it a bit and say keep it very short. So again, this time we should see a result because Obi-Wan has access to the SharePoint site and he should be able to access it. So let's wait a second here. Yeah, you see there is something in the output. And now let's try the same again with the second case for this Darth Vader. Ask the same question, and this time because Darth Vader does not have access to this SharePoint site, we should not see any output, and that's what you see here. Okay, so this was the second case. Now let us move to the third case, and for that one I will only use the session that we have here with Yoda. And the first thing I did is I was going to Purview and I was creating some sensitivity labels. Sensitivity labels, that's what you can attach to files, for example, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on, but also to PDFs to classify them. Yeah? And what I did here is I created a sensitivity label that allows Ludwig and David access. Yeah? To see how this works is basically, it's very simple. So you basically define who has access. So let's edit this, edit the label and make this a bit bigger. And in a second, you will see that there is an access control. So not everyone can access the documents. For example, in this case, Ludwig and David, these are my demo users. They have access to files. Yeah? You see here the files flagged. Then I come next, and here's the important thing. The permissions are only to this David So, which is my Obi-Wan. And then I have here admin, that's my Yoda. Yeah? And with this setting, I created a new SharePoint. This is the third case. And I have here a file called the history of Lego. Yeah? And you see here the sensitivity label says personal Ludwig. Yeah? So this means only Yoda can access it. Ludwig is basically Yoda. You see here, he can open it. And now if we change it, Ludwig and David, they have access rights to this document. Yeah? And let's wait here a second and close this. And if we refresh that, we should see the different sensitivity label. Yeah? So based on this sensitivity label and the setup that I did, actually Yoda and Obi-Wan should be able to ask questions about the history of Lego. Yeah? So let's check it out, whether this works or not. Here is my third Copilot. Yeah? Again, we have here the link to SharePoint. Yeah? And now let's say, tell me something about the history of Lego. And now let's see what is the outcome. It searches the knowledge sources. It should hopefully find one. It finds one, but you see there is no output. And actually I would have expected that there is something, because I'm logged in here with this account administrator. So Yoda has access to the file, but still we cannot see it. Let's change it. Let's change the settings here and give it a different label. And instead of protecting it for only a special group, we just say, okay, all employees can access it. So that's the general label. We change it. Then we close the file. Let's quickly refresh it to see. Okay, so now all employees have access. Let's go back to our Copilot Studio. And the knowledge, I just refresh it because might take a second until this is refreshed. And now if we ask the same question, let's see if we get something out of it. So this time we get something. We get something out because the document is now kind of not really personally protected. What is still wrong is this one. This label here is wrong. It shows always the old one. But now, because we gave the document free, we can see the answer. Okay, and now rather than using SharePoint as the knowledge source, let's move to the last case where I did something similar. I created here two files in the knowledge section, and one has something about the history of Sony, and this has this personal document security enabled, so it has this sensitivity flag. And the other one has just this general protection and has something about the history of FC Bayern Munich. So now again, let us test this and ask something like, tell me something about the history of Sony. and keep it very short. Yeah, and I will copy that because I will use it for the other document as well. And remember, the first document has this personal protection flag enabled, and you see it does not give us any output. So we don't have access to this, even though this personal sensitivity label gives access for my user that I'm using here. Yeah. Now again, let us check here something about FC Bayern, which is basically included in the second document. And now we hopefully should see something. Yeah, you see there is an output, and soon we will see something here. Yeah? So in summary, when it comes to these sensitivity labels, so they're basically like a switch on and switch off access that you can enable to protect data that should be shown in the Copilot Studio or in any agent that you use, but it is not going that deep that it checks out for the individual users that might have access to this. Okay, so that's the main points that I wanted to share. Let's go back to my PowerPoint for a short summary to give you an overview of what's possible and not. So after this short demo, here a brief summary. So in the first and second use case, where we restricted the access to SharePoint sites by their membership, we saw that only the users that have access to the SharePoint, they could extract this information. So only users with the proper user rights, they can ask questions against this document, no problem. Users that don't have access, they don't get the answer. Then the case with the sensitivity labels. So I would say it's kind of supported, but not fully. So what you have is if you classify a document as kind of restricted, as personal, then there is no access in Copilot Studio. Whether, on the other hand side, whether you say, okay, it's a public document, people in my organization can access it, then people can ask questions against it. But this kind of sensitivity label does not go as deep and look into the really users that you enabled for this sensitivity label. So that's something you have to kind of keep in mind, that it's more like a switch on or switch off kind of labeling for your documents. If you want to have more specific restrictions, so let's say only Obi-Wan or only Darth Vader or only Yoda should have access to this kind of file, maybe then you need kind of separate Copilot Studio agents, maybe separate documents that you give access in a more granular way. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you. So thanks again for watching and listening, and then looking forward to seeing you in the next part of course.